So you got to get the product into the store, then you got to get the people into the store to buy the product. And so, for instance, with Target, I decided to go on Facebook and just target all of the Target employees around a certain mile radius of the headquarters, and just constantly feed them Barnana material that was sort of in line with what they were doing on a corporate level.
What's up, food marketing nerds? We've got another awesome interview lined up for you today. We're going to be chatting with Nik Ingersol, co-founder of Barnana. He's on the Forbes list of 30 under 30 and just an all-around cool dude. Before starting Barnana, Nik founded a digital agency which eventually formed into an augmented reality firm. And today, we dive into how he's leveraged creative thinking and guerrilla and digital marketing tactics to grow Barnana so quickly. In this episode, you'll learn how creative food startups are opening doors with big retail partners using Facebook ads, what it takes to pull off a huge attention-grabbing PR stunt, why traditional industry thinking might be stunning your company's growth, and so much more. We discuss a lot of extremely useful Facebook ad tactics in a short amount of time here, so rather than having you pause, write down notes, and have to restart and do that all again every couple seconds, we've compiled all the best tips into a downloadable PDF for you, and you can find that at foodmarketingnerds.com/Facebook-ads. Again, that's foodmarketingnerds.com/Facebook-ads. I think you're really going to enjoy this one, so without further ado, let's go hang with Nik.
Welcome to the Food Marketing Nerds Podcast, where we talk marketing, branding, and social media with the smartest minds in the business. Here's your host, Alex Osterly.
So Nik, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
So could you tell our guests a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to found Barnana?
Sure. So I grew up in western Nebraska on a farm, moved out to California after high school, founded a couple of companies while I was in college, one being a tech company, the other one being Barnana. And today we upcycle organic bananas that used to go to waste at the farm and make delicious snacks out of them.
So backing up before, I guess, at the same time as Barnana, how did you come into founding a tech company?
Right. So it's interesting. So I grew up in Nebraska, super isolated area, not a lot of opportunity, escaped to go to college. And for me, it was always a lot of design in my life. And so I would do a lot of acrylic paintings and oil paintings. And what I figured out was that the more lucrative and easier business model is design, packaging, and logos and websites. So I started doing that instead of selling at galleries, and that's kind of what started the whole thing. So I picked up more and more client work, but then, of course, a lot of the clients, they want different things. Maybe they want SEO or this and that, right? So I met a business partner of mine that did a lot of SEO and SEM, and so we started a small boutique agency, an interactive agency. So we'd make, mobile apps and websites and things of that nature. We ended up pivoting and creating an augmented reality platform, writing and filing a patent for it in 2011, right? So very premature timing of the market for anything augmented reality. And it's funny looking back, it's like, man, all I had to think of was Pokemon. It was the key to the whole thing,
So simple.
So Canada still doing their thing. It's sort of a white label augmented reality platform. And that's how that kind of started. So it really was just a snowball. It's what happened.
And so where did Barnana come along in that process?
Yeah, so I met my now business partner, Coway, at a mixer, and I was looking for clients, of course. We ended up becoming friends, and he was running a bicycle manufacturing company at the time, and he's from Brazil, where there's these dehydrated banana products, sort of just whole dried bananas wrapped up in cellophane and sold on street carts and things. And the thing is, they're delicious, and there was nothing like that in the United States. So, we started looking at the food market and realizing, there's acai and coconut water that came over here. These are products that were commodities in Brazil and had been forever. And it was only in recent times where things like Zico and Vita Coco had come over and done a really good job branding it. So we saw a big market opportunity, of course. And then also we found out that banana is the number one selling fruit in the U.S., more than apples and oranges combined. And we just couldn't believe that no one had branded the fruit, the banana, before. And so it's kind of a no-brainer. Let's do this. So we started working at it as a side project for a while, getting the branding dialed in and the operations dialed in. And then sort of along our journey, we found out that a lot of the bananas, about up to 20% of all bananas that are produced, go to waste before ever leaving the farm, which was a big sort of eye-opener revelation for us. And then, about a year and a half after toiling around, we launched at Expo West, which is the largest food conference for natural organic foods in the country. And the rest is history. We didn't have any product per se when we launched, but we looked legit. So
thanks design background. So how did your background in art and design and having this tech company that's running in parallel influence the way that you approached Barnana and its marketing?
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? So in food, it's still like 1920s prohibition era thinking. I mean, it's really arcane. There's not a lot of tech that has moved into the food space as much as I expected that it would have by the time that three guys with no food experience at all, myself, Matt, and Callaway, jumped into it. We just assumed, of course there's tech. No, I mean, we're talking like the type of paper that has the perforations on each side and the holes, and you have to frickin' fax things. It was crazy. Certainly one of the strategic advantages for us was having a digital background. Jumping into it is that we could be way more nimble and smart about sort of the decisions that we were making. And so whether that's e-commerce or selling on Amazon, all these sorts of digital marketing tactics really helped because, traditionally it's you go into the store, you demo the product, you give the retailer an MCB or whatever, right, 20% off something, and that's basically the game. You buy their stupid flyer, maybe you put your logo in their little mailer that goes out that no one reads, and that's about it. And so we've been able to get really, really tactical with sort of product launches, retail launches, tests, things like that. So, I know if we're being tested in X retailer in X region, then I'll go geofence a whole bunch of people in that region, right, that have a certain affinity towards what we're looking for. Of course, take sort of our age demographic, which is the 25 to 34-year-old audience, and plug that in and get really specific about who we want to target and drive them into the store and drive them to the website. So there's a ton of ways. I mean, I could probably go on for forever, but having that digital background in the food space particularly was a huge advantage because there just wasn't and still isn't a lot of it.
Well, I'm definitely interested, and I'm sure our listeners are too, about some specific tactics as far as geofencing, getting people into retail stores, just because that is such a big pain point, is how do you use digital to get people in stores?
Yeah. So there's a couple interesting tactics that I've deployed, right? And so one of them is getting, just the product into the store. So you got to get the product into the store, and then you got to get the people into the store to buy the product. And so, for instance, with Target, I decided to go on Facebook and just target all of the Target employees around a certain mile radius of the headquarters, and just constantly feed them Barnana material that was sort of in line with what they were doing on a corporate level, right? So sales guys go in, they say, okay, these are Target's initiatives for the year. We kind of get a firm grasp on that, and then I tailor a bunch of messaging towards those goals that Target has, and then I deploy those ads against all of their employees and just keep doing it up until our sales guy shows up. And then by the time he shows up, there's already been this weird groundswell of like awareness for Barnana at Target headquarters, and no one exactly knows why. So that's worked better than I thought it would have. Starting, it wasn't just them; it's been a couple of retailers now, so that tends to work pretty well. And then of course you have to get people into the store to buy things. So there's a couple different ways. It depends on which retailer, right? Because some retailers will say, okay, we'll give you all the data. We'll show you what the store-by-store sales are, week-over-week, velocity, et cetera. And some retailers just keep that so close to their chest, they're not going to tell you anything. They'll tell you like, oh, you're doing good, right? Yeah, doing pretty good. Doing a little better than we thought, but they won't actually give you the numbers, which is super frustrating.
Come on, man.
When you'll have your PO. Yeah, like, come on, give me something. And so it depends on the retailer is the caveat here. But in essence, once you sort of know who your customers are, right, and then you also know where your product is, you can get super granular through Facebook ads and Instagram ads to some extent to drive people in the store. And there's a couple different ways you can do it. Of course, you can sort of self-host a coupon that people can take in with their phone, scan it, boom, buy the product right there. And then you track those coupon redemptions over time. You can also have some sort of like a rebate program. So we have Guerrilla gear on the back of each package where people collect points, they send them in, and we'll send them a shirt or a hat. Or they also have the option for us to take the cost of those items and then donate it to a charity. And so that's proven pretty successful, especially deploying that against specific retailers. So I might make a separate store locator just for retailer Z. And then I'll have a landing page. So for that landing page, it'll only be retailer Z stores in that store locator with a bunch of messaging. It'll be a custom rebate program just for people who are going to that retailer specifically, because maybe that's what we want to push the most. So instead of saying, okay, you have to collect 50 points or 100 points for this macro program that we have going on, which is essentially a rewards program that has been working very well, then maybe I'll say, oh, it's 5 points or 10 points or 2 points, right? I mean, it's 2 packages maybe or 5 packages, depending on how aggressive I want to get in terms of being able to measure and get people to go into the store and buy. And so on the front end, you're targeting your general consumer segment in terms of age and things like that, and then their purchasing habits. So are they purchasing organic foods? Are they purchasing whatever niche you're in, dried fruit, seeds, jerky, whatever? And then are they actually shopping at the store that you're targeting? And then you geofence around, maybe a 2-mile radius outside of every store, because you also don't want to cast too wide of a net because you're just wasting money, right? No one's driving 10, 15 miles to a store in a city, right? So you have to be really careful about that because you can waste money pretty quick.
Unless it's Nebraska. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, Nebraska, you're driving an hour. So.
Well, clearly you know your stuff. And I think having that digital background and then also being one of the guys at the top, you have that perspective of, okay, I know that might not be an exact correlation of $1 spent equals X amount, especially when you're driving people in store, or can you?
Yeah, I mean, you try to do that as much as possible, right? And it is difficult. There's some programs that allow you to do that. One is called Ibotta. And so if you do run a food company that has a retail footprint, Ibotta is super powerful because it's not a coupon platform. It's a rewards platform, right? And so they also have tons of market basket data and all these super interesting insights that you can, of course, that's sort of like their value add. They're really like a big data play, but you can parse a bunch of data. You can see how many redemptions are happening at which retailer and things. So that's super powerful for that. It depends on your goal, right? Like you can have a conversion campaign on Facebook, and of course, Facebook ads is sort of, it's where it's at right now. Even for food, people are getting much more used to buying food on the internet. So I think that you have conversion campaigns, you have lead generation campaigns, which you can also track leads, right? You put that lead list into a completely separately, trackable list within whatever email platform that you have, email marketing platform, and you track that over time to see, hey, maybe it's actually cheaper to get a lead from Facebook, right? Put them into our email marketing platform and get them to convert there instead of going directly for the conversion on Facebook or the retargeting or the dynamic retargeting, however you have that set up. So there may be some interesting insights as to how to spend the money best on there. But to drive them in store, it is a bit of a black box, especially with the retailers that are harder to squeeze the data out of. And some are pretty good. You can buy expensive spin stuff, and once you get to a certain scale, you'll be able to see a little bit better of an idea of how each store is doing. Some stores work with you, so you're either going for awareness or conversion, right? And you can, pepper people with awareness all day long, which is great too. But I do like to have sort of that conversion element, whether it's through a coupon or a rewards program or something where you're actually getting at least some sense of data coming back, instead of just putting a billboard out along the freeway and hoping it works through impressions.
All right. Yeah, it's insane how powerful Facebook ads have become. If anyone who's listening has not tried Facebook ads, or it is, the algorithms have gotten so smart with conversions and they improve over time. It's crazy. And clearly you guys are leveraging that to a really success, to boost your guys' success. So I know earlier before the call, kind of changing gears a little bit, you told me about a marketing stunt that you guys did. I think it was at Expo West that worked out really well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so Expo West, they love us. Maybe it's more of a love-hate. So every Expo West, I concoct some sort of like crazy guerrilla stunt campaign, something, right? And so maybe the most extreme example was, so last year we usually introduce new products or flavors or iterations or something, right? So like brand new news of the industry. In the Barnana world, we didn't have anything. And so the thought was, okay, maybe this time I'll just introduce a fictitious product. And so what I did was say, okay, great. What I'm going to do is make a package, make it look legit. I'm going to buy a URL and call this thing Guerrilla Milk, which is a raw, unpasteurized, free-range, grass-fed guerrilla milk. And so the packaging looks legit. I bought, guerrillamilk.org. You can still go there. And it just had this picture of this package of guerrilla milk. I set out a press release that said, talked about us going to Africa and being able to milk the mother gorillas ourselves. And, it's all to save their habitat, all this stuff, right? It's just like the most ridiculous thing humanly possible. It's not around April Fool's Day, so no one's really expecting it. So the whole goal was to have this sort of PSA at the end where, the big reveal is just because you can milk a gorilla doesn't mean that you should. And having that serve as an allegory of just because you can use pesticides doesn't mean you should. Just because you can take the easy way out in the food industry, just because you can use artificial preservatives and colorings and all that bullshit, it's because it's easier and cheaper, doesn't mean that you should, right? It's just not the right thing to do. So that's kind of the stance that we were taking with the whole thing. So, I launched the Guerrilla Milk thing. We're posting it on social, like, got this thing called Guerrilla Milk. We'll, tell you what it is in a couple of weeks. And so maybe 50% of the population is like in the WTF zone, right? Like they're just like confused. You have 25% of the people that are thinking, they're in like this is clearly bullshit zone, right? Like this is an onion.com article, right?
Yeah.
And then you have 25% of people that are really, really angry vegans. So it was up to us to like corral all these factions and sort of disseminate the information about the PSA at the end, because I was getting hit up by like every single dairy publication you can possibly imagine in the entire world, like the UK dairy, this and that. Like, can you send me some guerrilla milk to this place? It was hilarious.
That's so funny.
But yeah, it was a fun one. And so the last day of Expo West, we have a big build up, a bunch of cameras everywhere, a huge crowd. And then, we get up and reveal all the signs and do the PSA. So I do think that guerrilla marketing like that, especially at an early stage, at least for me, it's worked very well. And it's super impactful and hard to forget.
Yeah, I think that's... it was very well thought out to have that PSA at the end with a landing page. And I think a lot of companies would love to do stunts like that, but are a little worried about that 25% of people that are going to be irate or freak out over it or worried that it's going to fall flat. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I just don't care. For me, I don't know. Maybe it's just because that's how I was raised out in the middle of the wilderness and just, I just have a high tolerance for risk in general. And I think if you want to take a lot of risk and put it out there, knowing that what you're doing is right, then who cares? I think the pieces will fall where they should.
So I know you guys have experienced a lot of success and grown fairly quickly as a company. So in your opinion, are there any keys to marketing success for a younger food company?
Yeah, there's a lot of, there's been a lot of mistakes made, right? I think one is to be platform agnostic. So from a digital perspective, right, being platform agnostic, I think is one of the most important takeaways of all time. Because when we first started, this is 2011, 2012, 2013, this is like Facebook prime era, right? Like 100% organic reach for brands. And so what a lot of brands were doing back then that were either starting at the same time that we were, or maybe they're a year or two ahead or whatever, they were dumping every marketing dollar into Facebook to get likes, right? Like campaigns. And the reason is because they could get 100% organic reach. So they would have massive following of 300,000 fans and essentially be able to market to them for free. And then Facebook said, no, we're not doing that anymore. And so then they give you, a 1% to 2% reach, and you have to pay. And although you do have a nice ecosystem of fans, the problem is you have to pay to reach them now. And so you've seen it over time with everything, right? You're seeing it with Instagram right now. And so I think being platform agnostic is super important. I think being on the platform when it's hot is also important, and then converting those people into an email list or something that is not going to be controlled by a company trying to push more advertising dollars, squeeze advertising dollars out of it, right? I think that's super important. I also think that not listening to people that have been into the industry for like 30 years is important, because those guys are super old school, and this is an already super old school business, and they do have some good insights for sure, but I think you can spend a lot more money than you should by taking all that advice, by doing a lot of promotions and doing a lot of, like I was saying, print, flyer, mailer, shit that just like, man, it just doesn't work that well anymore. And I also think getting creative and doing sort of guerrilla marketing in a physical space, and then also doing it digitally, which, I guess, guerrilla marketing, it's funny, you have guerrilla marketing when it's physical, and then quote unquote growth hacking on the internet. But essentially it's the same thing, right? It's like trying to do something unordinary for a low cost. And so I try to over invest in the low cost, high reach stuff, especially early on, and also really get digital with Amazon, Jet.com, your own e-com site. To start out, I think, is the most important, especially because getting into the brick and mortar retail business, not only is it hard, but it's very expensive, and the cash flow isn't so great, right? I mean, you're purchasing raw materials, you're getting them assembled, selling them, and then selling to distributor and waiting 90 days. And for young companies that maybe don't have big coffers of cash, they don't have lots of gold bullion or gold coins in swimming pools that they're doing the backstroke in Beverly Hills. It's tough out there. So I think bootstrap for a period of time as long as you can, build up a nice audience, and pre-launch build up an audience as well. I think it's important to build up an audience before you ever launch, so that way once you do, you have an ecosystem of people that are at least aware of, if not excited about, what you're doing.
Is there, you mentioned you get a lot of bad advice, especially from people who've been in the industry and go the traditional route. Is there a piece of advice that you are really thankful that you got early on or throughout the process of building Barnana?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a ton, right? I think for us, again, as three guys with no food experience, there was a lot of good insight. And luckily, early on, we had some investors. We raised money from people that were industry angels, which is important, right? So our strategy was, and in general, for anyone listening that's thinking about or having a food company, like what you have is unique. You have the idea and the execution of the idea. Money is not unique. Like, there's plenty of money. It's fine, right? And so you want smart money. You want money that's been there and done that and can actually give you good advice and they're coming from a good place to actually help you. So you have some of these guys that are consultants, which that's their whole business. Like, I'm just gonna give you ideas and tell you what you should do, maybe in exchange for equity or whatever. I get really wary of those scenarios, and I've seen that turn bad. The best pieces of advice that we've gotten, is from our industry angel investors that have been there, done that, been operators, been successful, sold their companies, and now they're still doing the damn thing. So there's lots of them. I think some of the learning lessons are actually from the former, which are sort of the advisor. Oh, I'm gonna, let me do this and this and that. There's a lot of douchebaggery going on in that whole ecosystem. Okay. And so one of our core values is we have a strict no douchebag policy, right? Like, written into our entire company culture and very not hidden about it. Right. And I think that's probably the most valuable. But there's been tons of stuff along the way. I mean, learning what certain retailers look at, right? Learning sort of the best way to price your product, making sure you don't have 10 different price lists, that you have one. It's sort of like this accumulation of tiny little knowledge chunks, because what ends up happening is in the brick and mortar retail space, it gets so nuanced and complex per retailer, per channel. Are you talking about convenience, grocery, club, natural? You're talking about all these weird arms, and navigating through all of those, because they're not the same. You would imagine there's a lot of commonality, and there's some, but not nearly as much as you would think. So I think that early on, for us, it was very important knowing how much money to raise and when, not to keep raising consecutive equity rounds, right? Building note structures into sort of the capital raise process. Also, not to pay slotting fees. I think that was early on one of the pieces of advice that was the most important, was to say, we're just not paying slotting. That's not a thing we do. Like, we don't do that thing that you want us to do. And so slotting, for anyone who doesn't know, is where a retailer says, hey, love to have you in our store. Be $150 per facing per store. So you have 4 facings per store times 100 stores. All of a sudden, you're paying thousands of dollars just to get your product on the shelf. And so from the get-go, we just said, no, we're good. We're just not doing that. And a lot of the time, if you're convincing enough, if your brand is buttoned up enough, if your brand looks good enough and you have a good enough team behind you, those retailers will capitulate and not take the slotting and take your product in. So early on, that was a super good piece of advice that we received.
Well, I have really enjoyed this interview and your unfiltered advice. Just, it's raw, and you can tell that it's the actual stuff that really works. So I really appreciate all your feedback and these answers. And I know we have to wrap up here, but what's coming down the pipeline for Barnana? I know before the call you mentioned you guys have some exciting things rolling out.
Yeah, so we just launched nationwide in Starbucks 2 weeks ago, so that's super exciting. We have a brand new product line out right now called Banana Brittle, which you can find nationwide in Whole Foods. And then also starting, call it February 1st into January, we will be unveiling a brand new line of products that internally everyone here is extremely excited about. We're going to be plussing those out nationwide in Whole Foods. 3 flavors, 8 facings, eye level, perfect placement situation. But I can't quite tell you what the products are yet, but I can say they're going to be delicious.
Awesome. Well, you're killing it, and just keep doing your thing. I know you will. Where's the best?
Man, thanks.
Where's the best place for people to go find out more about Barnana and what you guys have coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, so you can go to barnana.com or follow us on Instagram, which is @eatbarnana. If you want to holler at me, it's @Ingersol, N-I-K, ingersolnik.com. Feel free to hit me up on the contact form or DM me, whatever, if you have any, random questions. It's hard to get a lot of information about the food industry or food marketing, et cetera. If you don't listen to podcasts like this or you haven't been in the industry, it's hard. So it may take me a little while to get back to people sometimes, but I'm always more than willing to just help out. And like I said, @EatBarnana on Instagram is probably the best way to keep up to date with everything we got going on. And that's about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Nick. You are the man. And I'll definitely link everything up in the show notes so people can go check it out.
Cool. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it.
Hey, guys. I hope you learned a ton in our episode with Nick today. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, to get that PDF with all the useful Facebook ads tips we discussed, go to foodmarketingnerds.com/Facebook-ads. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you all in the next episode.